And we're going to be talking today, as we often do, about traveling on the roadways. And it's a very specific instance of how people need to work together to create a way of getting from place to place. And so we're going to get to the fundamentals today about who's paying for the roads. Roads just don't come out of nowhere. Roads just don't grow on trees, you can say. And a free people would have to be responsible for everything in their land, including the roads. And today, in 21st century America, most of us have come to take our roads for granted. On the whole, we have very good roads. Some areas at some time don't get the repair and the attention they need because government is allocating funds improperly and not paying for the upkeep of the road so we expect. Supposedly there's some kind of agreement that if we pay all of our taxes and fees, that then the government who collects those taxes and fees will use that money to build roads and maintain them at a very high quality for safety, of course, but just also for comfort of ride. And this is something that we don't talk about very much today because, again, we just take it for granted. You get in your car, you turn on the engine, and you go. And if you hit a pothole, then you're like, oh, that darn government, why don't they fix these potholes? And just so happens I've learned from politicians so often running for office, and it's just a local office for example, in a town or a city, that's one of the issues that they run on. So I'm going to fix the roads. And so we do care about our roads. We want our government to make good roads, but it hasn't always been this way. It hasn't always been this way. If we go back in time, the responsibility for creating, maintaining, financing, building roads, not just roads, but also waterways, canals were also very important hundreds of years ago. And of course, the railways is another very interesting topic of transportation. But how to get ourselves and goods for commercial purposes from place to place is something that we the people care about. It's something that we the people need. It's something that we the people want. And yet we have to pay for it, don't we? Somehow. So that's what we're going to have a discussion about today. I hope to, really it's almost sobering to me to think about it this way, because on our previous months, we shout out to the world, we're free to travel in our automobiles, and the public roadways belong to everyone. And so there's should be no authority asking us to pay specifically for me to travel from place to place on the highways. But again, the question comes back to that highway had to come from somewhere. And so really we're going to get down to the sobering question of how are these roadways created? How are we to pay for them? If we don't agree with the current system the way that it is, if we think that the system that currently exists, which is kind of convoluted in terms of how the money gets collected and spent as far as new roadways or maintaining old roadways, we need to be really effective as free travelers and advocates for creating a new world, or perhaps going back to an old way that people thought about how to create roads. It's important for us, it behooves us to really understand and talk about how do these roads get created in the first place. So I hope you have all taken some time perhaps to think about this. Maybe you have some important information to share with us. Maybe you have some expertise in this area. We can start with the current situation and describe what we think we know about how the roads came to be, the ones we rode, the ones you maybe traveled on today, how those came to be and who takes care of them. And when it's the summertime, there's a lot of roadway construction and repair going on in the summertime often. And you see these construction crews on the side of the road. what do you tell yourself about those construction crews? What do you, when you drive past them, do you thank them for their service to you? Are they some kinds of modern day heroes that they're, providing this amazing service for us? Or do we just think of them as laborers working for the state, and that's just their job, and that's a good thing they're doing it, but there's nothing really special about what they're doing? And also, do you think about, how much money is being spent, which roads are being repaired, and which ones are not getting the attention they deserve? So I'm going to open it up right away for folks to introduce themselves, say hi. David James Rodriguez is here. He's traveled on the roadways and he's bucked the system. So I'm sure he has some things to say about the roads themselves, how they get constructed, our attitudes toward them, and what we think about the physical roadways that we travel on. Hi, David.
Mr. Grease, great to see you, brother. I'm out here with our monthly call. So awesome to bring up this topic, because a lot of times people ask, who's going to build the roads? And so I think there's a deep rabbit hole. And the short of it is that in our gas tax, there is a percentage which covers the cost of roads. So registration fees, all these cockamamie things which we've spoken about on previous months. This is the extortion racket by the monopoly organization out there. And I actually seen this case where there's a huge pothole. There was a huge pothole like this. And who was it? Domino's Pizza came through and actually filled it up with asphalt and then sprayed their name on it and said, hey, Domino's Pizza did this thing. And so this was one of the big questions that I had to overcome when I was imagining a stateless society, a society without a coercive monopoly force, the city, county, state, and federal governments who have extra rights that we don't have. So I got this answer from Rory Rothbard's book, For New Liberty. He covers courts and judges and all these really difficult defense, police, firemen, and roads are in there as well. But it's essentially the free market will take care of it, and roads are mutually beneficial to residents on both sides, and then business as well. If you have a bad road, then customers aren't going to drive on that road to go to your restaurant or go to buy your widgets or whatever you're selling. And it's just a beautiful idea to know the free market will take care of laying asphalt on the ground when we can organize these devices as well. You can't see it there. And grocery stores are completely voluntary as well. So the dynamics, the self-organizing dynamics of freedom will give us the result that we're looking for. But it's great to open this up, Clint, and to see what other people have in terms of ideas and thoughts. But we will build the roads, Clint. I will grab the tractor and I will build the roads with you, and we will grab the shovels, and we won't have to pay those guys. God bless those, Cal State worker guys who make $48 per hour and then a time and a half on overtime and all this boondoggling jobs project, 10 guys sitting on their shovel. God bless all of them. I'm happy you guys are making a lot of money, but do it on a voluntary basis, okay? Make all that money, do it on a voluntary basis, and don't extract that from people and say it's for the roads when there's been a long history of building roads without coercive monopolies at the helm. So yeah, it's going to be a great call, Clint. Great to be with you all. And I see Connie and some of the other friends here joining us. Love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on it. But if we want to be free, we must build it. I'm a fan of the exit and build philosophy, which is to exit the coercive systems and then build the voluntary systems that we desire. Schools, hospitals, grocery stores, all the above, electricity, everything. We can do it. And this seems to be the great self-ownership awakening that is upon us now, as the fiat currency is going down and these predators are going down. Clint, I was listening to a call that we did about 6 months ago with Rick Martin on filing claims against the cops' bonds. And I reminded myself, because there was a video from, who was it? Martin Armstrong. And Martin Armstrong was a colleague of Klaus Schwab. And so Klaus Schwab was following, he's a forecaster, international forecaster in the financial markets. And so, you can see by the financial markets how everything's going. Is it a crash, or is it just propaganda on the television set. Anyways, he gave us a line that I wanted to repeat here in the introduction, which was all these Marxists think they're going to be able to control everything, and they're not going to be able to control everything. They have this utopian idea that the technology is going to enslave us all, but when it comes down to food or power being shut off or all these things, we get back to our innate resourcefulness of creating relationships and finding moral, peaceful people to do business with and to benefit each other mutually. So they're not going to control it. They're going to try. They're swinging for the fences. But we are on the winning side. Connie, Paula, Yona, Natasha, Esley, Margaret, and Clint Grace. I just want to remind you guys that, because the propaganda out there is heavy, and it's psychological mind control. As Sun Tzu said, the supreme art of war is to subdue your enemy without fighting him. And so if you've given up, understand you've been defeated. If you have hope, understand you're winning, and you're on the climb up of this beautiful thing called the human life experience. And now we get to talk about who's going to build the roads. I think all of us on this call, we can do it.
Yeah, I can get my shovel. Getting my shovel out. I love it. Yeah. There's so many ways to come at this. But we go, one thing, generally speaking, in terms of the American law and how we're supposedly different, how we're supposedly free, how the American experiment or the American custom of self-governing people, free to do what they want to do when they do it and have voluntary interactions, that if we do create a government at all to serve us for any reason whatsoever, it's something that the way it was originally conceived was for people when it was still a new concept that a people could govern themselves, was that all of the powers and authority that were vested in the king at the time. The king was the man. I'm talking about even before in the United Kingdom, before they had a parliament even. The creation of a parliament in England was kind of a halfway step, if you will, to a fully free nation that we in America created. But the idea is that the king was the man or queen, and they owned everything, like everything in their realm belonged to them. And of course, then they had authority over every single inch of that land. And when it came to making roads, they were the ones to build the roads. The king spent from his treasury when and wherever he determined that he wanted to build a road, and he would pay people to do it. And so when American colonists determined that we were going to be a nation of people who governed ourselves without a king, then where is all this authority? Where is all the responsibility then vested in we the people? So a super simple way of understanding American law, American jurisprudence, is that all the authority and all the responsibilities and privileges that were once completely concentrated in one person now belongs to we, the collective sovereigns. It belongs to all of us, individually and collectively. So when it comes to roads, that also falls on us. We're the ones who determine when and where roads need to be built, and how to finance that, and how to keep them up, upkeep. So yeah, the thing is, very early America, we had the colonial governments of the various original states, and they had need for roads, obviously. But as David was saying, and as any person who just wants to come back to natural law will eventually understand that if a road needs to be built, it's going to get built by those who want it built and who have some sort of interest, some sort of desire sufficiently to put down the money to get the people together to build it. I mean, not every, I don't know, some roads maybe were just like a community project, perhaps, but mostly roads were built by men of means who had a reason for building a road. It's one thing to have like a main road down the middle of a town, a new town that's being built. Picture an old West town you've seen a million times on movies, where there's the merchants along the road, the main road, the one single road, and you know, oftentimes it's a dirt road, but it's a road nonetheless, and it's sufficient to get people into town and have them purchase goods and services from the various merchants on that road. So the merchants obviously have a vested interest in maintaining the road right in front of their store, but also the roads that get you to your store. Now, if you are a business owner and you're manufacturing goods, or maybe you're a farmer and you want your produce to get to market, you would also have an interest in building roads that extend beyond just where you live, just in your most local area. So, let's just be honest, as I was saying, if we're thinking of natural law, then roads would get built by those who have an interest in building those roads. And, to me, I find it particularly interesting to compare my life, my very contemporary, ordinary American modern life that takes so many of these conveniences for granted, to think if we didn't have all of this, what would I do? And the idea of building a road, to me, how important would that be to me? I have to ask myself personally, where would Clint Grease need a road or want a road? To go home to visit my family a couple 100 miles from here. I like that road. To go to the grocery store across town, to just go visit some tourist spot along the coast. I'd like to have a road go there. Would I be willing to build that road because of that? So it's very interesting to me to ask these kind of questions. But I want to show you, here's Maryland, for example. I hope you can all see it. As you can see, this was in the Revolutionary War period. 250 years ago, there was already in the state of Maryland, even before it was a state in the United States, it was its own territory. You can see that there were roadways being built. There were Indian trails that already existed, primarily to go from town to town. The roads were built initially by entrepreneurs who wanted to get their services from place to place. But the thing about roadways is it brings up a lot of very interesting questions about jurisprudence, including taxation, which was something that was being done at this time already. The state government of Maryland was already collecting money to be used specifically for the roadways, for the common good. And the other question that comes up, obviously, is about where the roads go. If you own a ranch or some property, and somebody, the state determines that they want a road right through your property, who wins? Do your property rights win, or does the common good win? And so that was already a question of importance at that time. And people don't talk about it too much today, because it seems like maybe every inch of this continent has been covered already by roads. Mostly the superhighways that take us from coast to coast are well established. And so we don't often think about these things. But originally there was one way of looking at how to resolve this issue of the common good versus the individual right to own property, the question of taxation of the people in order to build roads. The way that people initially related to roadways is in short, you pay for it as you use it. So roads, again, the financing of the roads was done with the toll on turnpike roads. And turnpike roads were designed to charge the people who use the roads. So if you never used that road, you didn't have to pay for it. But if you did use it, you have to pay for it. And that was just for me, a kind of common sense way of looking at roads, that if you want to use the road, you pay for it. So and we do have today, one of our monthlies, one of our free traveler monthlies, we have talked a lot about these toll plazas and these toll roads that people are paying for. And our complaint generally with those toll roads, and why we resist paying those tolls through various means if we can, is that we presumably have already paid in taxes sufficient money to be able to build the roads throughout the land and maintain them. So why are we paying extra for this road? So it's like we're paying twice. It's got, the madness of people's taxability, their willingness to pay taxes without really knowing what they're paying for, how much they're paying. So then when someone comes along and says you have to pay a toll, people don't even realize that they're paying double. They just think, well, it's a nice new road, someone's got to pay for it, and it makes sense to pay for it because I'm using it, which it does. But what about, you've already paid for it, supposedly? So again, if we go back 250 years ago, people understood that the roads needed to be paid for, and the people who should pay for them are the ones who use them, the ones who benefit from them. And we've talked a lot about that as a principle in these free traveler monthly confabs, because when we more or less, I mean, I'm sure there's some debate, and I'm glad to talk about it more today with you all. But generally speaking, we say that the roads are there for everyone, that they belong to everyone, and therefore we should be able to travel along them however and whenever we want, as long as we're not harming anybody. And that the ones who end up paying for it are indeed the ones who benefit from them in a financial capacity. That is, the roadways are shared, as we all know, by people just going place to place freely. Things like going to church, going to the grocery store, visiting family, just traveling. And then the roadways are shared with us, free travelers, with the folks who use the roadways for commercial purposes, and that means transporting goods or people. Like, so you're transporting goods. You see all the trucks on the road with the containers on their back, coming from the ports or going to the ports, or to a rail car, from a rail car to get goods distributed. And that's raw materials, and it's finished materials. So it's coming from where they came from, whether it's produce grown or some sort of mining, some raw produce that needs to be taken to a factory. And then from that factory to maybe another factory, another finishing place or packaging place, a distribution warehouse. And then from that place finally to a retail outlet. We all understand that the roads, I don't know if you've ever been on a highway and there's a big long line of trucks one after another somehow, and then you have to get in and around them. It's a big deal sometimes. And so we're all very aware that we share the roads with people who use it for commercial purposes. Of course, it's worth noting that taxis and Uber and other transportation systems for people, private coaches, buses and things taking people from place to place, is also another way that people profit from the roadways. And generally speaking, we believe that those folks profit enough, that they benefit enough from the roadways, that they could and should pay for them. And then as an incidental benefit to the people, we all then get to ride on those same roadways and share them. That's the general idea. But as I've said, over time, people have determined that, unfortunately, through government, through our representatives in various legislatures going way back, you saw the roads in Maryland, but even including all the way up until today in its most extreme modern version, our representatives vote for budgets that allocate funds for transportation. And then they find different creative means of financing those budgets through taxation, through fees. And every state is different. The federal government, of course, has its own transportation budget. The average American isn't clear about how it all works. Where does the money come from? And then, of course, governments have the ability to take out loans as well. That's a big part of the financing. I imagine half the roads in America are still being serviced as a matter of debt. I would imagine that the roads we have today are not paid for yet. We're still paying them off, so to speak, over time with a loan. And so most Americans don't realize that we really are paying through probably with the graft that's involved in these big projects. There's probably a lot of people making a lot of money, a lot of insiders and politicians and their friends making a lot of money off of these projects. And our ignorance is definitely to our detriment. But if we could follow the money, we would probably be very surprised where it went. And we'd also see that there's some sort of inequity in the sense that the people who actually benefit from the roads aren't paying for them. And the people who are paying when they don't really even benefit as much as they could, or as others are benefiting from the roadways. So let's open up this conversation. Let's hear from you. And I want to know what you think about the roads. If you're just honest like me, really before I was preparing for this day and meeting with you, this topic came up and I was delving into it, and I really had to confront my own personal naivete, my own innocence, in that I didn't know much about where roads came from, how they get paid for, and really how much I take them for granted. So let's all at least admit that much, if that's the case. But anyway, this is the topic of the day. I'm glad to discuss it with you. We also want to create space. We'll be here for a while. It's very casual. Just want to get to know you all, talk about what's going on with you. Maybe you got a ticket this last week. What are you going to do about it? I had my birthday in June. My driver's license expired. I haven't renewed it. I'm not making a huge statement about it, but I just want to let you know that I haven't renewed my driver's license when it expired. Yeah, again, say hi. What's going on with you? We're all free travelers. We're all here together.
I will always speak first if you don't have somebody speaking.
Go ahead, Connie.
Because I'm such a outgoing person. Anyway, I just say to the judge or the magistrate, because it's not really a judge, just discharge the debt. because I know the law, and I can claim my right of abrogation and just discharge the debt, Your Honor. Anyway, that's a little inside law stuff.
It's a very, I get it. Maybe you want to tell us a specific.
Hey, you racketeering scum, discharge the debt.
There you go.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of not really an attorney type, but I'm just a student of law. I took a risk when I went on a road trip recently, but I didn't get stopped. So I do have my DOT on the back, Department of Transportation number, which you can get. And so someone would say, what a chicken you are. You got a DOT. They're going to leave you alone. Because they kind of look at it like, ooh, this is neat. I better back off, because it has some clout, I guess. So but I did get stopped a couple times for going 40 and a 35 in town zone or something. And they give a warning or something like that, or they have done twice. Because I'm honorable when I speak and polite, and, and these are the who they are, what do they call it, code enforcers. So I appreciate the roads big time. As I travel across the United States, I'm always looking for smaller roads to get me from, say, Bozeman to Missoula, or smaller roads. So I appreciate roads, but are we still paying for them, Cliff? Or are we on a loan to pay for them? Or I've missed that part of it, I guess.
Oh, I was just saying, I imagine that the roadways are being financed, the construction and maintenance of roadways are being financed through government, which means, of course, taxation and fees and all that stuff. But it's never enough. So they have to borrow money. And it's just also typical, even if we go back 250 years, there was it's called a capital investment. The benefit to a business person who built a road 250 years ago to take his to get his products to market, for example, the building of the road made it possible for him to profit, but the profit wasn't coming till later. So it was an investment. And just like that, government today has to expend an enormous amount for a project. And typically you'd think, if they were a responsible government, that they would only spend the money that they already have. But just like a business person would have to determine a large outlay, the benefits to come later, there's no market forces keeping the government honest in that way. So really, it's just about getting elected. So look at the road I built. Even though I had to take us into debt or accept a federal grant, because the federal government, the United States, can just print as much money as they want, and they give federal grants for roadways to states and counties, but then the states and counties have to agree to a whole bunch of stuff that the federal government wants. But anyway, these large capital outlays very often include some serious servicing with debt. The government doesn't have the money.
No government has any money.
Has no money, right? They don't, or it's all funny money. So even if they do have it, they pretend they don't have it, and they want to get it from the federal government's printing press, or they want to get it from the banks at interest. So yeah, I was speculating, I don't have any facts about this, but I was speculating that most roadways are still being paid for.
We don't have any control over the millions that just went to Ukraine for weaponry, and we don't have any control over a lot of stuff. And then there's the 2 trillion missing and 6 trillion missing. It's just a free for all. It sounds like to me.
Right. 6 billion.
So we have potholes on this country road that I'm on near Mount Rainier, and we fill them up, with gravel. That we have. Then there's the highways that go to the mountain, because that makes money for the state parks, for the federal government, for the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So I just think it's a free for all, and I don't think we can control what goes into the roads, because I've heard people say these dang roads in Seattle, why don't they fix them? Well, they're not into fixing roads in Seattle. They have some other agenda. They want to, a tranny to make sure the homeless are okay. I don't know what the heck they're doing. So
yeah, exactly. So the government at its best does a good job of providing the roads that we need to support the commerce that we need. And yet, but we live in a very perverted time where money and favors and personal power and the way government gets perverted has perverted the roadways as well.
Well, I'm only concerned with the roadways that go to cities and around cities and avoiding cities and lumber, lumber roads. Here, I want to have this women's retreat and just go into the wilderness several miles on a lumber road, or what do you call it? Lumber road. Those roads that were made to get the timber down and to drag it to commerce. So I'm only concerned about those roads, but you're talking about the maintenance of all the large roads, right? Where there are fees and tolls and so forth. I've never paid a toll because I have this DOT on the back of my car, so I just drive through. I don't know who pays for it, but I just keep driving through the toll roads.
That's news to me. That's something I learned.
They can't track you. I mean, if they do, they'll go, "Oh, DOT, we better hands off." Okay.
The federal government discharged the debt.
Discharged the debt.
Maybe that's what's going on. Yeah. But yeah, even but you're reminding me of something I learned during my research this last week or so, that some road regulations also became a thing early on, because when folks were building roads, they established certain requirements for those who traveled on those roads. A very illustrative example is coaches. So they used to, horse-drawn coaches were the big means of travel at that time, and those wheels on those coaches would do damage to the road. If it was rainy, for example, if it was wet, it was a road that was they didn't have asphalt, they had stones and different things. But if it was just a dirt road, those wheels create ruts. And the next coach that comes along creates another rut, so then you have to fix it. At any rate, so they established certain requirements for coaches to have wheels of a certain width to be able to not damage the roads. There's some coaches would damage roads more than others, and the ones that would damage the roads were made illegal. So that was an early form of a requirement of the driver or the traveler, common sense, kind of rules to keep the road from being unnecessarily degraded. And the states also then also began to put requirements to anyone who should build a road about signage, that at a crossroads, for example, it was required that you have signage that said if you go that road, like the next big city, basically. You still see that today, right? Road is when you're at a crossroads, the direction you go is based oftentimes on the next big town that you'll run into if you take that road. So that was an actual requirement. Anyone building a road minimally put a signpost saying which big town is next down if you go down that road, if you go that way. So it's a very fascinating question for we the people to address, because it's very much the same question that we need to ask about every aspect of living together and sharing our land and being co-equal sovereigns of a land. And how do we arrange ourselves, and what kind of social contracts do we have with each other? What kind of rules do we voluntarily agree to for the sake of a well-run, organized, prosperous land? So that's the question. Thanks very much, Connie, for your personal specifics of your personal life have been very helpful for us month by month. It's really great to hear from you.
Adventures.
Yeah. Let's see who else wants to say hi. And I love this question, David. It's an inquiry, right? That if roads, if we couldn't pay for them with the government, if no one could take money from anyone else or force you to build a road, at gunpoint, what would be the voluntary? What would a world look like even in the 21st century where it was completely voluntary? This is an inquiry it breaks a lot of people's brains, because of a lot of things that are a shared resource, like the roadways, really are hard for people to grapple with. It's a new kind of question. It's not something that we're used to as Americans to think about. If government didn't pay for the roads, how would we have roads, and what would they look like? Has anyone ever thought about that? What have you come up with?
I want to comment on, I think it is Elira. She says, I'm off grid right now. Our road is awful. We're bartering to have it fixed. So this would be a common situation where you have neighbors, you're in rural areas, and let's say Clint lives over here and I'm over here, and we got this road that's in between. And so, you got 5 acres, I got 5 acres, or 10 or 20, wherever you're on, Elira. And so it's like, hey, what are we going to do about this? And so I'd be interested to hear what you're up to or where you're at, Elira, because what we got right here are 15, 20 people, people here that have a desire for freedom, a desire to not be extorted in the excuse of for the roads. And so one thing that blew my mind was discovering it's about 3 or 4% gas tax in every gallon that you pay for right now. So as you mentioned earlier, Clint, they got plenty of money. This is all a boondoggle, a jobs project, a racketeering scheme to pay their buddies, and you learn, God bless these people in government. My mom was a public school teacher. My dad was in Parks and Recreation. But for many generations, many of these families, they do get these multiple 6-figure jobs, these cush pensions, and all you got to do is shut your mouth, do what you're told. And yeah, even though there might be some immorality, there might be some underhanded stuff going on here. Hey, you want to take care of your family? You want a good pension? Then shut up and do this. Okay. So this is the general gestalt that I feel that a lot of just make money. That's what everybody's after. But Clint and I and some of the people here, I would say everybody here, we want freedom now. We're sick of all of this stuff. So now what we're learning is negotiation, is communication. Clint and I have been learning a lot the last few months. How do we over communicate? Working with strong men, strong women. We got to learn our language, look at our intentions. And with Elira working off the grid right now, said our road is awful. On a scale of 1 to 10, how awful is it? Is it a 5? Is it an 8? Is there 6-inch potholes, 8-inch potholes? Because this is literally a new area of study that I'm getting into as well. I'm on a little over an acre, but kind of off the road. I don't have a huge dirt road, but I got to learn about roads, and eventually I'll have bigger land and I'll go out and literally rent one of these Bobcats that I've seen. You can rent for like $400, for a few hours, and go out there and make the roads. And you'll learn about the different rock type, gravel type. Do you put the low or the high or the watering? I saw some of the old Roman roads, Clint, and they're bowed, so the water goes off into the gutters. That's something to think about. Part of my road right now is like the rain comes and it like kind of goes through the other 80%, and like kind of, if we get any more crazy rain, we're going to have a big old gully right there. So what do? We're trying to redirect the water from the top of the strainage right there. So she says it's a 9. Oh my gosh. If you have some photos, it would be nice to see, but take your time, Ira. But this is negotiating. So what does it look like? Did you get a quote on the road? From our driveway to the main road, how is that going to be? How many different neighbors do you have? And you might have to call a meeting. You might have to have a little barbecue meeting and say, hey guys, the road sucks and we have 10 of us here or 6 of us here. Let's all, put some, heads together, and how are we going to do this? Right. It's like, so my guess is that whoever has the most road would have to pay the most, but that's not how it works sometimes. Sometimes, hey, let me put up some commercial signs. I have a business. Let me put it up here, put up some billboards right there. And if we can learn, for example, if the road's going to cost you $3,000 and you can figure out a way to make some money with signage, maybe, Elira, maybe you can go out there in your local neighborhood or not immediate, but kind of surrounding area and say, hey, look, we got 20 homeowners. Would you like to put up a sign? Cost you $200. You go out and get, 15 people put up their commercial sign up there. And then you can say this road was voluntarily built by the people on this road. Drive safely, take care of it. And there's a certain level of ownership that comes with, hey, I built the road. Hey, we did it. Clint and Connie and Elira, we built the road, and there's no other authority, versus, hey, the county's going to come take care of it. Don't worry. Versus like, hey man, no, I picked up some gravel today. You got some asphalt or something. I'm tired of driving. Literally, where I'm at right now, the roads aren't that great. When I was in San Jose too, Clint, the roads for where I was on 280 right there, I was driving down and go, I was like, where am I, dude? Third world country. So some areas actually are terrible. And when I was in Korea some years ago, the roads were smooth as ice. And I'm like, what's going on, man? So I'm told I got the best roads in the world. And then in reality, compared to Korea, it was like super bumpy. And even in Mexico, I felt really smooth roads in Mexico. So anyways, I'm just taking a look at the notes here with Elira. So these are the questions that, okay, Elira says it's just us. All right, well then, maybe you have a business to put some, your commerce on the signs on the road or something. So you have a private road. It's a 9, terrible, and bartering. Okay, so you're bartering with a road builder. Okay, so then you got to get creative, right? So this is the entrepreneur mindset that's coming back, that I think more people are going to get on board with this whole thing when everything continues to go down, and we'll see with everything. I just saw a clip today, Clint, where they're talking about this digital currency, And this guy, the World Economic Forum, he's like, yeah, we can program it so they can't buy undesirable items like ammunition. And you're like, okay, no, ammunition is welcome. Remember Second Amendment, you politicians? We're allowed to protect ourselves. We're allowed to defend ourselves. We need any permission slips, licenses, or any type of approval from King George or any of you other jabronis right now. So I think this is what's exciting, is that we can have these kind of conversations without going through the newspaper, the radio, or the television. This is a big deal. The internet, the last 25 years, we couldn't have talk like this in the 80s, in the early 90s. We couldn't talk like this, but now we can. So now we're coming up with these ideas. We're raising our awareness and consciousness of what the problem is and what the solutions are. And the problem is the road is terrible. Great. What are we going to do? I'm not sure, but I can trade you body work or oils, or I'll do something for you. Will you do something for me? So I would love to hear, Lyra, anything that the bartering ideas that you're coming up with, because thank you, Connie. Yeah, great ideas here. What we're doing is trying to tap into that resourcefulness area. And I can feel it's like, for me, like been calcified somehow. You know, you feel that creative imagination. You were a kid and you're just like, idea, 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 idea. And then slowly they kind of like form me to go down this mainstream path. And I'm like, now I got to break these old habits and the old, I would say calcification, or the cement on my brain. I'm like, oh my gosh. So for me, you know, some helpful thing is psilocybin and some other plant medicines, but like just breaking the brain of like, we are the creative geniuses that we were born to be. And we've been kind of taught to go down this way versus expand and open. They've been breaking it down like this. And we got to barter and we got to build the roads here. So, oh yeah, let's hear it, Lyra. You can put the microphone on.
Sorry, I was looking for some pictures just now so you guys could see how just insane it is. It was like, it threw my alignment off. It popped 2 of my tires.
Exactly, dude. I'm so sorry.
I mean, my husband's tires were going in opposite directions the other day. It's just awful.
Oh.
So he owns his own HVAC company, and he meets, you know, different people every day, and he's like very outgoing, and he's a great businessman. He's, you know, just a very stand-up dude. So everyone he meets just immediately, you know, likes him, which is a good quality to have, because I'm not very outgoing. So, I mean, we just kind of got lucky. Our old neighbors, when we lived in a cul-de-sac before we bought this ranch, he just happens to do roads, and so he's going to come out and grade it and then lay down the gravel, which is what we need, because right now it's just all dirt, and when it gets wet it turns into like a Play-Doh consistency, and we just keep getting stuck and it's destroying our vehicles. So we have 40 acres off grid, completely off grid, and so there's like 3 dirt roads before you get to our mailbox, and then after our mailbox it's almost 2 miles of dirt road before we get to our driveway. So the first dirt road after our mailbox is technically owned by the city. However, they are refusing to fix it because they said that it's an unmarked road. So even though they do technically own it, they won't pay to fix it or fix it themselves, because it's just basically, they just say like, yeah, it's kind of what you expect when you know, travel on unmarked roads. They're going to get destroyed and we can't really fix them. So yeah, he's just been, you know, putting himself out there. He has a couple clients that he's done work for that they do roads too. So we're just going to get a couple different quotes at this point and just see what work he can trade as far as HVAC goes. And I do photography, and I'm like, throw that out there too. If anyone needs any commercial pictures or anything, you know, just see what kind of deals we can get. And our neighbors just east of us own 40 acres also, and we share the first road. So just seeing if they could go half on that with us also would probably obviously really help. But I'm just trying not to eat this cost ourselves, because I just can't imagine. I mean, you know, the first just regular quote we got was like $12,000. And with this guy that we know, he's quoting us 3,000, which is obviously a lot better. It's just really crazy. We didn't expect all of this. But I mean, I'm thankful for the property. I just didn't expect all of this moving here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
interesting. 12 to 3. And my guess is that most of it's going to be labor. So like the
right.
materials are going to be like rocks. And I don't know exactly. There's probably 20 types of different roads to lay down. And so there's maybe some area of research to go down and find out what the $12,000 offer looks like.
Well, now there's apps for people
Mm.
who, I mean, want to barter and things like that. And so we found a local app. I shared one of the pictures in the chat, just how awful it is.
Mhm.
Um, but we found a local app of people who just kind of want to get rid of their recycled asphalt and gravel and things like that, and
Mm.
just market it as like a free dumping site for them. So I'm gonna utilize
Mm.
that too.
Wow, recycled roads, because other people would be taking out old materials, bringing in new materials, and they would just have the rocks or the kind of asphalt type things.
Right, and they would have to pay to, get rid of it. So, um,
Oh,
just marketing as, hey, like a free dump ground for your recycled asphalt.
wow. So are you going to try to make a road for the 2 miles or just the areas that are super gnarly?
Yeah, so this is just past our mailbox. Our mailbox is just to the left of this, and it's about 2 miles of just, awful roads. We had like a 20-foot like wooden arch as an entrance to the ranch too, and the ground just got so mushy. It had been up for 23 years, but we've gotten so much rain this year that the whole arch fell also. Like we don't have that anymore. The whole road is just
Oh
completely
man.
destroyed.
Oh man.
Can't
And
even
that's
leave
in
for
water?
groceries. Yep.
Oh my gosh, you can't even leave for groceries. So there must be some major, major rivets, and then the water runoff creates a little path and a little gully or canyon, right?
Yep. And I mean, just outside of this, so there's dirt roads for a few miles, and then the main road now has sinkholes. Yeah, I literally can't go to the store right now because there's sinkholes and rivers flooding my entire surrounding neighborhood. A woman literally drowned last week. Her car was swept away in the flood and she drowned in her car.
Mm, wow. Oh my. Yeah, we respect Mother Nature, we respect water, and whatever it is going to take your life, it's not worth it if you can live a long life and not be conquered by Mother Nature, man. My gosh, sorry to hear about that. Wow, that's amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I guess the lesson is to be aware of that as you get property and or make little bridges. Of course, everything's always 2020 in retrospect, right? Like, hey, we should have done this. It's like, yeah, we didn't. How are you going to predict a big rainfall? We got a big rainfall this year in California too. So I understand the like total randomness and surprise of having that road up. But thanks for showing that. That does look like a pretty treacherous drive right there. I wouldn't want to drive on that. It looks like muddy. You get stuck and maybe fall through and yeah, hurt yourself.
Amazing. Yeah. So there's so many different roads. We have the rural areas you guys are focusing on right now, is the rural area, which is a great case in point because that really takes us back to probably what it was like when there weren't a lot of roads around hundreds
Mm,
and hundreds of years ago. And people were dealing with just exactly the realities of Mother Nature, as well as the financing of it, which includes, the possibility of working with others. So creating a voluntary collective that will finance that road for people who all understand that they need to protect their car. It's
mm,
actually, the money invested in the road will save on maintenance of the car itself, but for, just to be able to get to the grocery store and things like that. All the way up to the modern era where you have these massive interstates that are just, I mean, just enormous. 7, 8 lane highways going each direction and cement as far as the eye can see. That's a massive project, and where the money comes and goes, is not as simple as this more rural, more authentic, more organic financial situation. But that's why I love this discussion, because we're really getting in touch with the reality, physical reality of getting from place to place, rather than just taking it for granted. It's so easy. You mentioned those Roman roads; they are remarkable for having. They were built 2,000 years ago, and they're still there. And there's some of the best roads in some areas. There's just so well built, the engineering behind them. So in a way, if a centralized government, as the Roman government was for such an extensive empire, responsible for building roads throughout its entire empire, a lot of those roads were built for, we haven't talked about this, besides commercial use, those roads were used for military use. That's, you have central government in Rome and a massive empire. Yes, you want to have commerce thriving from place to place throughout your empire. You want to build roads for that, but you also need to get your military to the places where they need to go to fight off if there's any insurrections or rebellions in your empire, or at the frontiers of your empire where you're expanding. So a lot of those roads were built and used by the military. That's not something, I suppose the military uses the roads here in America too. But that is an interesting motivation for a centralized government to invest in roadways. But they do let those roads they built them really well. And I wondered, David, if our government, as we are principled, we are principled freedom lovers, but you have to admit that if the government did an amazing job, like at a really low price somehow, most because of super effective and leveraging the efficiencies of, that's the promise of government, is that it leverages the efficiencies of a broad area. So individuals like Elira and her neighbors aren't left alone to figure it out. There's, maybe it doesn't work financially for Elira and just her and her neighbors. But if you look at a broader area, maybe then it starts to make sense, because you can take advantage of the scale. In which case the government, so imagine the government was doing an amazing job and they built amazing roads that were going to last forever. So every dime spent would pay for itself 1,000 times, and they did it efficiently, they did it, graciously, they did it with no corruption or graft. I think people would be happy about that.
Yeah. We just want good roads. It's like, I'm sure, Elira, if you could pay $50 a month and somebody would cover, take care of the maintenance and make sure it's a good road, you'd probably do that. Maybe $75 a month, and maybe there's a limit in there. But we just want our stuff to work. We want our plumbing to work. We want the electricity to work. And now we've been lulled into this hypnosis, in my opinion. So I don't know how the electricity works on my house and the plumbing. And there's some things I know, but in terms of like, if, stuff hits the fan, I'm going to have to do some major crash courses on YouTube, man. Like, but back, maybe 2 or 3 generations, my grandfather's from Nebraska. You kind of look like you're in Nebraska a little bit, Elira, out there in the Midwest, but he was super handy and like learned how to do everything. And there's a great, funny YouTube video. This guy was working on the car, and he's fixing this guy's car, and he comes up to him and he says, "Man, thank you so much for fixing my car. You saved me so much money, man. Did you go to school to learn this?" And the guy says, "No, I grew up poor. So the only way I got to fix or drive the car is if we fixed it ourselves." So there's a funny joke about poverty and the benefits of like, either you fix it or it don't get fixed. But we just want our stuff to work. I think we could probably figure out a membership model. We can figure out some type of model where we don't have to be extorted, and we would do it, except the government probably would sick their jackboots on us because they got a monopoly on the roads. That's what my guess is. I haven't gone deep into the monopoly that they have, but the monopoly on coining money. They threw a guy in jail for making, I think it was the Liberty dollar, maybe 10 or 15 years ago now. He was just coining his own silver, selling it on a voluntary basis, and the government came in there and kidnapped him and threw him in a cage. So we want voluntary solutions. We want consensual contracts, and how they do it now is, yeah, using, well, these bills and these bonds, right? It's like, hey, we're going to do this now, when then your grandchildren or the next generation's got to pay for 30 years on the same thing. It's like, just get debt. You know, the government's in this $30 trillion worth of debt, and they're like, yeah, every person's responsible for $100,000. It's like, I'm not responsible for your debt. That's your debt. And Connie knows, and some other people know, we're learning about the Social Security card, the birth certificate. They keep us as collateral, and learn about the SESQV trust. Like, the government doesn't have anything, actually. The only thing they have is what they steal from another individual. They call it taxes, but it's actually robbery, taxes, extortion. And this is where we're at now. So yes, to protecting the cars. Forgot to add, you had the name correct. It's Lira. Oops, sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the road builder right there. Wow.
Yeah, I'm just really
1972.
fascinated by more so than ever because of by a little bit of research. I cracked through my naivete, and yeah, actually, I do have a cousin of dear who lives in a rural area in southern Arizona in the desert, and yeah, he has to maintain his road. I've been out there with a shovel after a rain. I've gotten blisters working on that road. If I want to go there and I want to enjoy the desert and this beautiful place where he lives out in the middle of nowhere. First of all, I do take an interstate from the airport. There's the interstate, but then there's a county road, and then there's this condominium road. So all the houses in that massive area, they're very sparse, but the roads, it's like a tree, and then they all come together eventually to get to the county road to get to town. So, you're kind of responsible for maintaining your part that you don't share with anybody else, but the part that everyone shares, which gets mutual use. And then there's a condominium fee for that, which I guess you could call that like a voluntary, because it's definitely contractual, definitely part of the deal if you want to live there. But there's different ways of managing these things. As Elira said, the city, when it says, oh no, we don't do those kind of roads. They have, they have the categories, and they have this, got the bureaucracy established, and somehow to be able to say, no, that doesn't count, that we don't do that. Some law was passed, who knows, 30 years ago, said these kind of roads we'll pay for, these kind of roads we won't pay for. And
we just don't have the money for it. Sorry, we can't do it. Sorry. It's just like, we own it, but we don't have the money for it. Sorry. It's like, okay, well, you're put, like you said, Lira. I got the name right. Lira. My back's out of place. The shocks of the car. You're ruining my car. I literally think where I'm at right now, probably like 10, 15 minutes right here, I'm driving down at 30, 40 miles an hour. And so I was like, dude, every day, that can't be good for my car, man. Like, is somebody going to fix it? And they're doing some electricity under the road. It's just like, oh my gosh. So, maybe as a responsible individual, I have to drive around and find little back roads where I'm not going off of a jump every time going down the road or something. What are you going to do, right? We got to protect our property when those that have a duty, allegedly, to take care of the roads, they're not fulfilling their duty, and now it's hurting my property. And who knows, there might even be a small claims case to make that because of that, you broke my shocks, which is under $10,000. And now I can verifiably say it was driving like this, and now it's not driving like that on this date, and somehow put together a case. That might be something of interest to put together here. And I'll tell you what, Elira, if you sue the city for something, you'll get their attention real quick, and maybe you can work out a deal, the settlement or something. And I really hate to say that, but like, the only way that we get these people to move is through money and incentive, right? So we talked about filing claims against their bonds with Rick Martin earlier on this program, early in the year. And the reason they do that is because if they if the bond company pays out, call it $100,000, then the cop has to pay the bond company back for the bonding of him. And if he doesn't, he's now unbondable and he lost his career as a public servant. So that's quite some accountability. That's coming from Rick Martin there, that his model is, he's like, don't sue because I got a federal lawsuit going right now, and they're trying to get it dismissed, despite you arrest me in a post office for not having a mask. So anyways, finding a remedy. You might try small claims, as you say there. That's maybe not a terrible idea. But what do you do when somebody owns the road, it's hurting your property, and you're a peaceful person, right? We believe in peace and not initiating violence against people. So man, again, back to what do? You got to sue these guys, file claims against their bond, or maybe the risk management guy, the city, especially small cities, Elira. Just so you know, anybody listening, small cities are very susceptible to lawsuits because they only have so much money to pay for the premium versus a large city, which has a large amount of money to pay for the premiums and the lawsuits. Lawsuits is a cost of doing business in a city with 50,000, 100,000 plus. But 2,000 people, 3, 4, 5,000 residents, they don't have that much money to allocate to lawsuits. And yeah, if you want to play hardball, that might be one potential solution, at least for the short term.
Once again, invite folks to raise your hand or just open up your mic and say hi. There's no stopping you from jumping in here and saying hi. We want to just create it every month at the free Travelers Monthly Confab. We just want to create a confab, just talking with each other, whatever comes up for you. Reflections that you have about what we're talking about, specific solutions you found or that you're attempting in your life when it regards to travel and being free to travel. It's so central to who we are to be able to go from place to place. And I love this topic area, and I love focusing on this topic area because, well, again, it's an important topic area, but it teaches us so much about who we are for each other as a people living together. It touches on property rights, it touches on taxation, it touches on the ability to go from here to there without asking for permission from another person, which apparently in our lifetime is becoming a big deal, right? None of us must, I don't know, I didn't ever expect. It touches on eminent domain, touches on how things get financed in a society, talks public utility, the common good, having resources that we all share. These are all central questions that we, the people, have to study, understand, and so that we're capable of having conversations with each other to be responsible for all of these important matters without just saying, I don't know, leave it up to the government. The government can do it. Government will do it. What do you say, Kat?
Oh, well, I just came in, so I was just thinking something off the top of my head about kind of like the circumstance right now where they're short on police. And so I don't get pulled over, as no one has been pulled over in a long time around here.
They're short on what?
Police. And so no one has been pulled over in a long time around here.
Interesting.
So,
where are you? In a rural area?
Sorry, what was that?
Where are you?
Well, I live in Berkeley and Burlingame, actually, now. I have 2 apartments, but so I'm between both places. But in Berkeley, it was such a high priority with all the crime that went on. Still, to just pull people over nonstop. And even with the whole so much crime going on, they really care. I've seen their postings or them posting on Nextdoor, and they really care about, this person got the best cop of the year because he pulled so many people over for DUIs. And I'm thinking the laws have changed about DUIs too. All it has to be, you don't even have to do a 0.1. In some states it's 0. And the cop could just say, but you seem drunk, and then you have to pay $10,000. So in some states, I don't know if you guys know that.
For
And I've seen
DUI
them
in
pulled
particular?
over. I've been pulled over and told I have alcohol in the car. You have alcohol and drugs in there, don't you? You
Yeah.
know, they
I
do
feel
that.
I feel like almost the roads, like they won't do this when you're walking down the sidewalk. They won't come up to you and say, "Hey, you know, you walked this way the wrong way." You know what I'm saying? Or you walked that way the wrong way. But on a road, it seems like they have more control over you. Like if some people were saying, like in Berkeley, they were pulling people over to check up on their probation status. And stuff like that on the road,
That's not legal.
So can you guys hear me? Kind of seems like it's choppy.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Kat. Yeah. Yeah, often you bring up the subject of cops pulling over. It is a racket. Let's all just say it. Let's just be honest. It's so obvious nowadays. I know there's still a few people I talk with casually when I talk with people about this subject who still have some sort of mythology about the police as being there to help us and protect us. And they say, well, who would you call if you were in trouble? And it's really two different conversations are going on. It's almost a divide again in our country where people support police without question, like they can do no wrong. And it's really hard for them to see that it's all money and it's all a racket.
Right. One thing I'll say though is like maybe the people that support the police have maybe their lives have never been in danger, and so they just assume that they'll get the help they need because nothing bad has ever happened to them. Maybe they live in a super safe town. But for me, I dealt with a big crime 10 years ago, and the police didn't care, and they were very negligent, and they were even there for the criminal. So I know that it's by law. They can't be in trouble for not helping us when our life is in danger. You see that in all the school shootings. So it's starting to become more clear with all the school shootings and them not running to the rescue that like they really aren't there for our safety. And another thing is that I don't know if you guys know this too, but the police and their unions keep advocating because a lot of the mayors are in Berkeley and trying to pull away from the nonstop pullovers,
Mm-hmm.
And the police unions, they are really strong. Like they feel like they keep the town safe by pulling people over. Like, look, I don't know if you've noticed that they will post, look, we pulled someone over and we got this criminal that was that did a robbery or that murdered somebody. I mean, there's other ways of catching criminals than just pulling everybody over every second.
Yes, I personally have an extremely high standard for law enforcement. They inhabit a very unique place in our society. Unlike any other, they are the ones who are given a lot of authority, and they're given legal authority to use violence against us. And presumably they would do that in the best, most honorable way only ever. But let's not kid ourselves. There are endless stories of police corruption, everything from inflating their hours in overtime and to literally shaking people down like in a third world country. That definitely goes on. You've got forfeiture on the highways. There's just so many things that are egregious. They have immunity that's given to them in the law and in the statutes that stop them from being punished for things that if you and I did it, we would be in jail for a long time.
Can I mention one thing, Cliff?
Well, I'm just talking about their unique position in our society and how we need to hold them to an extremely high standard. And to the point, well, it's well known, they all make an oath, right? An oath to uphold the Constitution. So, a law enforcement agent in like another kind of country where they have a top-down control, centralized control The government and everyone recognizes the police are an extension of this centralized power, a kind of private security force. In America, again, we are different. We are unique. We're just celebrating our Independence Day on Tuesday because we're not the same. Our police officers, our law enforcement officers are there to serve us and to protect our rights. And that means on the roadway too. So one of the principles that is so essential is that we are innocent until proven guilty. And I believe, and there's plenty of people reporting evidence that the training that police officers have been getting for decades now is more to treat the average person as an enemy or as a dollar sign.
I don't believe in hierarchy, Cliff, hierarchy of any kind. Even when I said to my 10th graders, you guys can leave the classroom, but your parents are going to be very upset. I was teaching them what anarchy really is, which is absence of rulers, not absence of rules. But, they want to know, they're burning for the truth. 10th graders burning for the truth. So these cities were created long ago, which there has to be hierarchy in cities, because you have to control what's going on in the city. I believe in communities of 300 or less. And I really am an Amish girl in my head, and I'd go back to that kind of situation. But the 300 in a community can work on the roads, as this young man is talking about. We can work our own roads. We can take care of our homeless. These smaller communities. It's the cities that have caused a lot of the hierarchy into the government, into the federal, into the statism, and so forth, and collectivism rather than the individual. So when you look at the root of it, I just want to disband all the cities and spread them into oblivion, into communities of 300, and then we have but I don't have the power to do that, and what's out of my control, I'm not going to worry about. But that's part of the problem. Our communities, we can do these things he's talking about, but not if there's a city in hierarchy that can become corrupted and so forth, because it's just the way a human is the human brain is. Oh, I've got some power. I want to get some more. Oh, this is like a drug, So it's my 2 cents philosophy about that.
Love it, Connie. I'm with you. Yes, self-rule. I big believer in self-rule, and we're all equal. And when you said no hierarchy, I was thinking, I think the decentralized world is coming. And the decentralized world, which is you're a queen, Connie, Clint's a king, Elira's a queen, Kat's a queen, everyone's on here. Whatever you are, you're the sovereign or the highest authority over yourself and your property, no matter what. Even if the whole world writes on a piece of paper they have authority over my flesh and blood, they're all wrong. So this type of knowledge is now increasing. We're now starting to become self-evident. And was it Gandhi who said the 3 phases of truth is, first they mock you, then they violently push you away or like defend or, against you, and then you win, right? There's these phases of truth. These are new paradigms. The king used to be the guy, as Clint was talking about in the beginning, it was like, America, we don't want a king. And George Washington, they're like, we want to make you a king, George Washington. And they're like, no, I don't want a king. Let's do a democracy, republic, constitutional thing. And now it's just going to go to this next phase of evolution, which seems to be voluntary relationships, consent in all things. And if you don't consent and I don't consent, then they have no authority, which I brought that up in the Declaration of Independence. It says the just powers of government come from the consent of the governed. So when I talk to statists, I'm saying, well, if that's the founding document of this country and I never consented, then how do you have any authority over me? It's just like, do you see the gears
I
moving?
have to bring this back to the classroom, because I tell the kids, is this okay if this student does this and harms another? Can we do this to them or for them to help them? All the kids have to agree on not the punishment, but the guidelines for harm to another student or property. And we have to all agree. And so I teach that in the classroom. But a lot of teachers will lord over the kids. Well, this is the way it is. Strike 3, blah, blah, blah. So teachers or boomers who were trained as teachers need to be retrained I should offer some coursework. It's just the kids all have to buy into it, or it doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right. So it starts in the classroom, it starts in the home, that kind of thing. I hope parents don't lord over their kids too much. Anyway.
Let me ask you too, this question, because you both are talking about hierarchies, and I've understood the hierarchies are part of natural law, that you can try to eliminate hierarchies in human affairs, and you'd be going against nature. So let me ask you, looking at this picture I've put up here, this is purported to be a typical situation where they're building a road back in the horse and buggy days, a nice road, it looks like. Do you see any hierarchy here? Do you see any involuntary servitude? Do you see, what do you, when you look at this picture, do you see everyone's equal? How do you interpret?
There's levels here, Cliff. There's levels, because in theater, in improvisation, when you're higher than the other guy, that so takes you up a level. He's got a hat on to make him double higher, so he's an aristocrat. Kind of seems to be possibly supervising the group, and then the other guys are sitting down doing the work. He's not doing the work, he's looking at the work, so therefore he's probably in a supervisory position. Is that what you're asking?
Right. So are they all equal? Are they co-equal sovereigns of a new free self-governing land of we the people, for the people, by the people?
He's higher than they are. He's more dapper. They will take orders from him. Chances are they're the blue collar worker guy.
Yeah, that's a great point, Clint. Yeah, so let me distinguish a forced hierarchy, a coercive hierarchy, where we think like the mayor or the city council or the supervisors are somewhere above us when we never consented. These guys, let's assume they're on a voluntary work agreement, then they're working for this guy voluntarily. He hired them. He has the capital. He has the connections or whatever. So yeah, I guess hierarchy itself isn't the problem, in my opinion. It's just the force and the coercion of the statist hierarchy of the president, governor, senators, and God bless the Dianne Feinstein, the senator of California, is 89. She's got to be 80 pounds, and she looks terrible. I wish you well, ma'am, but geez, why do you want to be in politics? Because of power and money. She's doing favors and scratching each other's back as long as she can. Probably her last day is going to be before she goes into the ground, so that type of hierarchy is coercive and forced versus a voluntary one, where it looks like here, let's assume that these guys are, not slaves, and they're of their own will. Maybe they're indentured servants and, worked out some other way. But, the dream is to build your own life, build your own sustainability and independence. And yeah, this seems to be I'm just going to surmise it's a voluntary hierarchy, but if there's any artifacts that shows this is a coercive hierarchy, I'm willing to take a second look.
Yes, if anytime any group of people work together, they come together with a variety of skills, experience, and vested interest in terms of the capital, if there's money involved. And so I do believe in hierarchy, but it has to be voluntary. I'm happy to do what somebody else tells me. If I'm on a team, I'm part of a project, I'm playing my role that I know is essential and critical, but my expertise and my skill base doesn't equip me to be able to be the one to manage the whole project. And so I rely on somebody who is and can manage the whole project to assign me my specific task for that day or for that time period, knowing that my efforts in combination, in coordination with the efforts of others, will actually result in something amazing and beautiful. And so, yeah, voluntary hierarchies. All right, yeah, let's build some roads. Who wants to build a road today? Who wants to have a homework? Let's, I invite everybody to get really connected, connected to reality when it comes to your roadways. Elira is very connected to the reality of the road that she travels on. And I invite every one of you to ask yourself, or just notice to start with, what roads do I travel on mostly in a day, or over the next week or over the next month, and pay extra close attention to those roads. Adjust your eyes to see the roads, like see the infrastructure, as it's known, infrastructure that it is. See the the curb and the asphalt and the painting and the road signs and all the physical reality of the roads that you actually travel on. If it's a freeway, the on-ramps, the off-ramps, the control lanes, the commuter lanes, the signage, of course, by extension, the law enforcement agents, the highway patrol people who, see, but just look at the actual physical roads themselves. Ask yourself how much you think it cost to build that road initially, and how much has been spent to maintain it for your use. And then maybe you might be curious about, how does it get paid? Where does that money come from? How much of it am I paying? Am I paying my fair share? Or am I a beneficiary of this perverse financial world we live in, where governments can just take debt and debt and debt and debt and interest on debt for indefinite periods of time and kick the can down the road? Are we benefiting from that system? So I don't know the answer, and everybody's roads are different. And I personally don't own a car of my own. I gave up driving around much. It was just too much of a hassle, to be honest. For me personally, I like a simple life. And so I get around just fine. I can always rent a car. And now that I don't have my driver's license, so we'll see how that goes. But my point is, let's get connected to reality and really reflect on the actual roads that we travel on, and from a point of view of just being grateful, if you will, just being appreciative of the fact that they do exist and that we do benefit from them, and that we don't want to continue taking them for granted, and thereby educate yourself about where they came from, how they keep up, and have some say as a people in the construction and maintenance of our roadways. How do you relate to this world we live in this time and in our history, where we're supposed to have a free country? We're supposed to be free. The government's supposed to serve us. The government's supposed to protect our rights. The government's supposed to ensure a form of government such that we are voluntarily working together. I know it's a far cry from that, but what's it like for you?
Well, can I say something about this freedom?
Yes.
I get comments too from people like, we have freedom, we get to go to courts. And I'm noticing the court system is actually could even be worse than China's court system, honestly. Like, in order to defend yourself, if you're innocent and if they have it out for you, you have to spend. A lot of people have to spend at least, $500,000 to defend themselves to their lawyer. And so it's like, well, how is a lower middle class person going to do that? So, of course, we know how to study ourselves, how to present ourselves in court, but other people don't know how to do that. And so poor people that can't afford an attorney, or that might not have this really isn't court if you're not rich. So I just don't think.
Exactly. We can have all these beautiful ideas on paper, but when it comes down to actually paying for your own defense, it's more expensive than anyone can afford. It's outlandishly expensive to have a lawyer. And so these elite clique of bar certified lawyers and judges run a system that most people have very little exposure to. Most people spend their lives avoiding court. No one's like, I want to go to court. But I'm here, the Commoner Law Group is here to educate people and empower people in the law sufficiently so that you do feel capable to use the law to defend yourself if necessary, or to seek justice from those who've harmed you. And I believe as Americans take up this call and educate themselves, then we could make lawyers obsolete and restore a true justice, where there are actual court cases, even if it takes 1,000 more court cases, 1,000 times more court cases than what's going on right now, to be able to force the outcomes that we need and to force the justice that we need. It's up to us, right? We the people. It's this nation is of, for, and by the people. We are the final, the last recourse. If this country isn't the way it should be, it's up to us to fix it, each and every one of us. Did you want to say something, Jerry? Good to see your face. Thanks for turning on your video.
Yeah, I've been researching a lot of this stuff here for a while now, and it's amazing the amount of deception that's going on. And I think the hardest part is trying to give that information to other people, family and friends. You know, it's really trying on your soul, you know, to even like further progress it myself is like, man, do I want to be, do I want to just keep joining in, or do I want to really fight with this? And it's been hard because you just feel so, there's so every nook there's another cranny, and so it's a difficult process. But I mean, a lot of my questions with it is how to do the public and private mix kind of thing. Like, I want to start a business, but I'm in the trades, and I'm also concerned with the whole licensing thing. Like, I don't want to be part of their system. So how do you go about not being part of their system and do business at the same time? So I don't know. And then also with like the travelers thing, I got the international driver's license, but I don't know really. It says on there I'm a driver still, so it's like I don't want to be a driver. So I don't understand, you know, exactly where I'm going or how I'm getting there, but I'm aware of it all, and I don't know if I'll ever get to the point of you know, taking control of my accounts or my trusts or any of that kind of stuff. It's a little hairy, but I mean, even that is just, it's I don't know, how do we take it back? What do we do? I mean, really, do we have to involve the sheriffs or what? I mean, I don't know.
Great questions, man. I feel you, man. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, absolutely. That's great. So I'm glad you said that, Jerry. Starting your own business, going from or going into the private or staying in the private. Great questions. One of the best piece of advice I got was I have something from a dentist. He says it's a practice. The dentist practice. It's a law practice. So just like, you know, life is evolving, so do these organizations and codes and statutes. So it's like this organism almost, and they have a direction that they want to take us with the centralized cities and the CBDC and digital ID. And I mentioned before about the ammunition and just shutting the money off. And some people are going to go that way, but the people here listening now, we're going this way. And we're going back to or transcending this system of coercion and monopoly. And we don't know how to get there, but there's a great story from the Hopi Indians. And they said, in tough waters, you're in a boat. You jump in the boat in a tough, like bumpy river, very rough rapids. And whoever's in the boat with you, that's who's with you. And whoever's on the shore, that's who's on the shore. And the river has a destination. You might not be able to see the destination, but the river has a destination. So just celebrate and rejoice of who you are with now in the boat. And that's who you're with. It's like, oh my gosh, because of the Indians, they didn't have no Social Security. They didn't have no safety net. They were planting and hunters and gatherings, and, you know, they were, you know, killing the buffalo and these kind of things. So anyways, I want to share with you that it's a practice, and we're all learning. And it's, you're not going to get to eat an elephant one bite, right? Little by little, bite by bite. session by session, course by course, year by year, it's definitely, I understand like where to go, where to begin. But the most important thing I would say, and I'm curious to hear what Clint says, is that you know that you're a sovereign man on the earth, that your rights come from God or source or nature. And that's step one. So that is the solid foundation that even the Declaration of Independence agrees with. And now through commerce and the UCC, and it sounds like you went down a lot of rabbit holes. You know, it's all fraud. Clint, thanks for calling it racketeering. That's what it is. It's criminal stuff that's happening right now. We're participating in it. So what's the balance between putting our neck out there and putting our toe in it? And where is it? Well, you gotta ease into it, feel it. And at some point, like for me, I was a right to travel activist for 3 years. I had private plates on my car, and I got arrested multiple times, had my car towed multiple times. And I said, okay, so I'm missing one part of it, which I think is how to sue the cops, how to keep them accountable, because I got some crazy stuff on video, but I didn't know how to go about it. And I don't got $30,000 to drop on that. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing. So as we said before, federal lawsuits, filing claims against their bonds, and maybe the exit and build strategy or whatever. You got to choose a hill that you're going to dedicate and devote your life to. We get one life, at least in this body. And what are we going to put that towards? Great people like Gandhi or MLK put it for civil disobedience, and they got arrested dozens of times, sometimes for months on end. But it's not an easy solution when we've been lied to for decades and generations. Our parents were lied to, man, even our grandparents. And I'm like, oh man, how long has this thing been going on for? At least 100 years, probably more. And now through this technology, we're able to expose it, we're able to see it. And then I think the solution is to build, to create. And I just want to stay as far away from those predators as possible. I want to have my food, water, and energy in my community over here, and let those people, God bless whatever they're going to do to those people. But for me, my people, my boat, we want to be over here. And I think that's the decentralization process of finding our tribe, building our tribe intentionally. You don't need 1,000 people. I appreciate Connie saying 300 people. I think that's a good village. But in the Freedom Cell model, it's like 8 people, or, you know, have different concentric circles of people who you do commerce with or people who you associate with. But I don't need to save the world. I don't think anybody needs to save the world. We got to save ourselves, protect that, build abundance, and then share with other people. Like Kat said, you know, poor people have a tough time with this. Well, when starving people don't have food, then shit gets real crazy. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is what their plan is, in my opinion, and research there with Henry Kissinger and these psychos. They know that food is our Achilles heel. Like if we don't have food, we're in trouble. So I would start focusing on that. You know, they call this decade the decade of transformation. They're trying to flip everything like this and turn it upside down, and they will do that for some people, but not for us. We're preparing, changing our mind, breaking through, and it is a practice, Jerry. So I feel you, brother, and everybody else here. I know, man. I know, banging our head up against it. Where to begin? We don't know. You know where we should begin? We take a rock.
Gates first.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where we start, we take a rock, we throw the rock up, wherever the rock lands, that's where we begin. And we start this process because Jack Spurko, he gave me some inspiration last year because I haven't built a garden. Last year was my first year. Now I'm on my second year. He says, you don't got to go like start this amazing food forest, you know? He said, go out your back door, look for the nearest place of soil, dig a little hole, plant a seed or plant a plant, and start right there. It's like, okay, I'll do that. So now I got like, 20 or 30 plants and fruit trees and stuff on my land. And it's just like, okay, that's right. It's the compounding effect. It's the consistency effect. And I think that's what's so powerful, what, Clint and I are doing here and creating this content where it's like, okay, we're learning, we're evolving with this stuff. And it's beautiful to hear Connie speak about, anarchy and voluntarism, and Jerry mentioned about the private. This is all of my other friends too are talking about this too. Like this is rising. This information and knowledge has been kept under wraps because it is their Achilles heel. It is their kryptonite. and we're gonna go and we're gonna win. But we got to get through the dark days. It seems. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's not going to be dark. But you know, I think this is the place where, like you, Jerry, it's like starting the private and figure something out. And we know we don't need their licenses. We know it's criminal activity, but how much we want to play and push. You know, a lot of respect for Clint for not renewing your driver's license, brother. We're looking forward to hearing your story next month. See how it goes.
Well, you have to rescind it actually. You got to turn it in. You got to change your status. You got to claim it non-U.S. citizen. I mean, there's a bunch of things about changing your actual how they look at you and getting your live life claim and all this stuff. It's deep. There's so many steps, which
I understand. There's different philosophies on that. I'm not looking for another have to in my life. That's another got to in my life. I appreciate the way you're saying. I know what you mean. If you intend to pursue a specific strategy, you need to rescind and do these different things. That's definitely a very popular philosophy. My role, Jerry, first of all, is to congratulate you and to encourage people, because it's the spirit of freedom that it really moves us. And we don't know all the answers. David said it, we've been saying it, you know, we've been lied to for years. The key of knowledge has been kept from us. But for someone like you, obviously, if a light went on, so, you know, switch was flipped and there's no going back. So that's a good thing. But now the question is how to live our lives consistent with the new perception we have of reality, and our new commitment to being and living free, not only as an individual, like a tradesman that you are, which is a singular challenge of itself, in and of itself, and you'll need to ask and answer the questions for yourself. Everyone is different in terms of what they want to do, what they want to take on, and you're also asking the question about all of us. You know, how do we free all of us? You have both those questions going on at the same time, and they're different answers for those questions. The one thing I have noticed in terms of freeing yourself, so to speak, from the cabal, from the beast system, is that it can be very black or white. It's not easy to have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. And from what you said, I think you maybe already starting to see that for sure, that you're going to have to, there's a fork in the road and you're going to have to go private all the way, which means, you know, rescinding a lot of things. And in the Great American Law Series that we teach, that's the purpose of it actually, is to just have everyone firmly establish a foundation in what we know as natural law, or in the American version of it, common law, which historically, you know, what we have from our nation's founding in the colonial era, this enlightened notion of free men operating in a certain way. They got it then, and that's what they created this whole country based on. Just because we went south real quick and real deep up until now doesn't mean that the idea isn't still there. Anyway, so we have the Great American Law Series, and one of the exercises in it is to ask everybody to make a list of all the areas or all the contracts that you have, all the unrevealed, unconscionable contracts that you didn't even realize that you've signed up for. And to make that list. And it's so funny, and to keep the list going, because you think you've got it, you think you finished your list, and then you think of something else. It didn't even occur to me being registered to vote. I was like, oh yeah, I registered to vote. Even though voting, the electoral system is part of the statutory realm. So it's pretty extensive. That's why it takes a really brave person, and it's not by accident that to go private is very much very different from all the rest, because they've got us corralled so successfully, so entirely, our entire lives within this statutory beast system, that to get out of it, you can do it incrementally. You know, everything in life in some way or other is kind of incremental.
It's like we're running out of time, really, is like what's
well, that's the other thing. You know, the events are happening so quickly. You know, how long does it take you to do paperwork? So today, all I ask is that everyone today stand and just be free today. You know, regardless of what conscious, unconscious contract unrevealed, unconscionable contracts you may have, you're free today. You know, you are free of that contract now because you say so. Just because you haven't officially rescinded it, which is a matter, I think, is a very honorable thing to do. It's like, okay, I didn't even know I was signing up for that, but now that I know, I'm actually going to go out of my way to undo that contract. Now that I know, that's going out of your way to be super honorable. A lot of people just say, screw it, I'm free. I don't need to tell anybody about it. If the only thing in time it matters is if a government agent comes knocking at my door. And that's another thing you get in the Great American Law Series is examples from our instructor, Fritz van Magistrate, about what he did when they came knocking at his door. And you will get the spirit of how to comport yourself, how to communicate your total truth in such a way that it doesn't matter what contracts you have or haven't had. It's man to man. It's you standing in your power. And so, and maybe that'd be helpful for you at the stage. The Great American Law Series is available. I put it in the chat just now, so you can link straight to our page. I think it's 6 weeks of instruction and real life stories from our expert who has been living natural law since he was a teenager. Now he's in his 70s. So it's specific techniques and documents, templates that you can use, as well as the spirit of it. And I highly recommend it. And maybe you can turn this on to some of your acquaintances, your family members. It might be the thing that makes the difference for them. There's a lot of resistance to being free. I know people, let's be honest, they don't want to be free.
Yeah. Bottom
You know,
line.
but because of what they think about what being free is. They have some, I believe in the back of their mind, they have some idea that being free is dangerous. I heard somebody say that being free is dangerous. The only other thing more dangerous is being a slave, but being free is also dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, it puts you out. You're responsible for everything. Everything falls on you.
Yeah.
So that's intimidating to a lot of people. But once they get, but I think when given a really clear choice of freedom and not freedom, when people have it really clearly distinguished, I think most people are going to choose freedom. That's what I'm counting on. God created us to be free. So we got that going for us, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for being here. You guys, this is great. What a celebration of freedom loving people.
I usually come, I just don't turn my video on usually.
Well, I'm glad you finally did, Jerry. You're wonderful. All right, everyone. God bless you. David, send us out with joy and love.
Absolutely, Clint. Thank you for your leadership. Jerry, thanks for joining us. Connie, Margaret, Elira, Yona, Esley, Mary, and anyone else who sees this. We're on the winning side of history. It took us a long time to get here, but now we're snapping out of it. We understand we own our body. We can do whatever we want on the earth as long as we don't initiate harm against another person or their property, and we uphold our contracts. We are moving towards an honorable society, starting with our honorable self. Let us all take a look in the mirror, see how we're contributing to the problem and how we're contributing to solutions. Such an honor to be with you all. Thank you, Clint, for your leadership, and everyone else for your leadership as well. We'll see you all at the Free Traveler Combat. Sending you peace and love and freedom forever.
Over and out. Thank you.